This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the next time TNA book 3 gimmick matches in the same show, one of them won't be a street fight with Velvet Sky in it. Well, I'll say one thing for TNA. They always keep me guessing. Who would have thought, on a night when the Wolves winning the tag team titles was pointlessly delayed by the Bromans pulling the exact same DQ crap they pulled the week before, when the hype for the main event was non-existent, when they threw Dixie Carter out there for seemingly no other reason than for her to talk about how beards are her intellectual property, you figure that one out, that it would actually be something else that really got under my skin. TNA, John Gaburek, Lagana, Conway. I don't know if you've got Vince Russo whispering in your ear or what, but the gimmick matches are getting a little ridiculous. I mean, goddamn, it's every week with this stuff now. And haven't you learned over the years that constant, mostly unpromoted gimmick matches really don't increase ratings or business in any significant way? I mean, how many times are you going to do this expecting different results without getting them before that sinks in? I like a little carnage as much as the next person. But in the future, can we please not have a street fight, a tables match, and a Monsters Ball in the same week? Can you not put Velvet Sky and Madison Rayne in a gimmick match they've got no business being in for really no reason at all, and have it be so short and so tame that you water down the gimmick to the point that it's almost meaningless? Let's not decide to do a Monsters Ball in a blink and you miss it backstage pre-tape, and then do so little to promote it for the next 90 minutes that it's like you're trying to keep it a secret? You think you're making the show more exciting with this stuff, but you're not. All you're doing is desensitizing your audience to all these gimmicks, so when the day comes that you have a gimmick match that you actually want people to think is an important match and a big deal and a special occasion, they're not going to because they get stuff just like it all the time. That's all you're doing. And it's stupid.
Oh, my brother! Testify!
Even though I do still have some reservations about Eric Young as the world champion, and I don't think I'm alone in that, I actually thought TNA did a really good job with getting over his title win from last week. They had a bunch of video packages of Eric showing how much it meant to him. There were a lot of people talking him up and congratulating him and saying how hard he worked over the years to get to this point. And it felt genuine. It seemed like a nice feel-good moment. It doesn't change that creative dropped the ball in building up to it by hot-shotting him to the world title over about 2 weeks, but it seems like they stuck the landing nicely. However, writing-wise, they put a dent in this thing immediately. The opener is just fine with Eric out there. He's the first one out, he starts the show, and this is what you want. You want a few minutes here to kind of absorb this and let the fans celebrate with Eric and let him say what he's got to say. But he barely has a chance to do this before Dixie Carter comes out and diverts all the attention away from Eric and back to her. Why? So she can talk about how she made beards cool or some nonsense like that? Was it really necessary to undermine Eric and make him look silly immediately when you're already facing an uphill battle to turn this character into world champion material? And then Bully Ray comes out, and all of a sudden Eric kind of feels like a third wheel here. They should have just kept Dixie and Bully out of this segment. They didn't do anything new here. They just reminded us that they've got a problem with each other. Well, hell, we already knew that. Give them half the time and let them do this backstage. Let this segment be about Eric for a few minutes. Then bring Abyss out there so they can set up the Monsters Ball main event in such a way that the audience will actually know it's happening and maybe, just maybe even anticipate it a little bit, Russo, and this whole show would have been better off. Doesn't that sound like a better way to go than announcing a Monsters Ball in a backstage pre-tape that goes by so quickly and so quietly that it would be really easy to miss unless you were paying very close attention and then barely mentioning it whatsoever until bell time? I'm just saying.
Oh, you were not aware of this?
So the Wolves get another tag title shot, and the Bromans just get themselves DQ'd right when the Wolves are about to win. Again. Same damn thing as last week. This feud has nowhere to go. It's just continuation. There's no progression here. And I wouldn't mind that so much if this rivalry was in any way compelling, but it's not. The Bromance's offense is so dull and slow and boring and one-dimensional. They couldn't keep up with the Wolves on their best day. They're not even in the same league as Davey and Eddie, who are routinely working circles around them, and yet we just keep dragging this out and dragging this out and dragging this out, and it's not making me anxious to see a title change. It's just making me frustrated that it hasn't happened yet. And I do understand that TNA are in a bit of a bind here. Tigre Uno and Sonata are occupied with the X Division title for the time being. Bad Influence are most likely leaving the company, and while there may be a beer money reunion in the works, it hasn't happened just yet. Presumably Storm and Rude need to tie up loose ends with Bully Ray and Gunner first. And all this means that TNA pretty much only has 2 teams to work with. So even though it's a really bitter pill to swallow, I get that it's not as simple as just having the Wolves win the tag titles and that's it. But then they've got nowhere left to go when they still have some time to kill before presumably Storm and Rude get back together, hopefully after Sacrifice, the next pay-per-view that I don't think TNA have even mentioned yet, and I'm not even sure when it is, honestly. So, like it or not, this Wolves Bromance feud needs to last a little while, because it's literally the only tag team feud they have. It's hardly ideal, and it diminishes the Wolves when you keep delaying them winning the titles from these lame duck ass clowns, but at the very least, they're not insulting our intelligence by having the Bromance get over on the Wolves or beat them in matches. The writers dragging this out so long may be irritating as all hell, but they're doing it the only way that makes any sense, with the Bromance doing all this chicken shit stuff, technically holding on to the titles, but clearly just delaying the inevitable against the far superior Richards and Edwards. I don't think it's going to accomplish anything more than killing time. I highly doubt it's going to put any real heat on the Bromance whatsoever. This feud is never going to be interesting or compelling, but I suppose the silver lining here is that the feud could be doing a hell of a lot more than it currently is to do damage to the Wolves and drag them down, but so far, it isn't. Rude, Storm, please stop screwing around and reform Beer Money already. It can't happen soon enough. Yes! It's possible my expectations have been lowered a lot when it comes to the X Division, but I was just really happy to see it get a match on TV and something that resembles a storyline of some kind. You'd think stuff like that would be commonplace and go without saying, but unfortunately, it's not. I like that they finally gave Sonata some promotion here with that video package to help the audience connect with him a little bit. You know, the dude's been the X Division champion since before lockdown, and this was really the first time that he hasn't felt like a total blank slate to me. That's good. I'd like to see something like that for Tigre Uno as well. And after that, the next step would be explaining why exactly Tigre Uno and Sonata are having a best-of-3 series in the first place, because I still don't know. A little context here would be appreciated, TNA writers. But they have the second match in the series. It's pretty good. It looks like the winner of the series will be feuding with the King of the Night, Kenny King, who had a really good promo here and did commentary during the match, so they seem to have some direction in the X Division for a change, which is nice. Though it is strange that they just seem to switch gears with Kenny King. I mean, 2 weeks ago he was feuding with MVP, and now he's back in the X Division? Maybe it's a long-term thing and one is going to affect the other somehow? It seems pretty unfocused so far, but... and hell, it's more than we usually get with the X Division these days. Part of me wonders if Samoa Joe, Kenny King, and Austin Aries all having issues with MVP could be related somehow. If TNA wanted to put those 3 guys together, I'd definitely be cool with that. If not, I'd be satisfied just to see the greatest men that ever lived back on TV on a consistent basis. I mean, come on, TNA. Whether Aries being absent from TV for weeks was storyline driven or because of other reasons, with all the roster departures you've had lately, it doesn't make any sense at all to keep one of the best damn talents you've got, period, off TV for that long. Don't do that again.
No, no, no.
I do think there are some real benefits to this Willow character that Jeff Hardy is playing right now. It might make Hardy less recognizable at a time when TNA don't have a lot of recognizable stars, but it also makes him more interesting, and that counts for something too. The problem so far, as it is with a lot of things in this company, is with the execution of it. The whole Willow persona has been so poorly defined. We know it's an alter ego that Jeff Hardy has, but we don't know why or what its purpose is. They've sort of hinted that Willow is the personification of all Jeff's rage or something like that, but they've never given us a real concrete explanation about it. And add that to the fact that Willow seems to be so reckless most of the time that he becomes a hindrance not just to his allies but also to himself, and can't seem to accomplish what he wants to do because of that, and it makes it really hard to support this character. But that seemed to change this week. Maybe they made some tweaks to it or something, I don't know, but this was the first time that I felt like Willow was actually an effective character. He has a handicap match against EC3 and Spud, and he wins. And it's that simple. He doesn't try to set up some big high spot with a ladder and let the heel escape in the process. He doesn't go nuts with the umbrella, getting himself DQ'd or anything like that. He goes out there with a simple goal and purpose in mind to win this match, and he accomplishes it. Alright, good. Thank you. Finally, it feels like this character is actually working on a means to an end here. He has a method to his madness and is not just being an anarchist for anarchy's sake. This really needed to happen. And if they can keep this up with him, then I might just start to buy into why the heels seem so freaked out by this guy. Although, it was just so damn typical of Willow to do what he did here. Focusing on Rockstar Spud, who was working with a grievous leg injury, and pinning him, thus narrowly escaping the beating of a lifetime that he was about to receive at the hands of a new American icon of wrestling, EC3. What a shameful display. As was Kurt Angle stopping EC3 from giving Willow exactly the payback that he deserved and attacking wrestling's greatest hero after he had just wrestled an exhausting match in a sickening and pathetic attempt to take advantage of him in a weakened state. This was the epitome of cowardice. And just because they know that neither of them would stand a snowball's chance in hell against EC3 in a fair fight? Shame on you, Willow, and shame on you, Kurt Angle. You people make me sick.
How dare you?
It's really encouraging to see EC3 get booked like this. Him and Spud lost the match, but he didn't get pinned. And he got over on Willow with the post-match attack a little bit, so Willow needed to be saved by Kurt Angle. And EC3 didn't run from Angle. He tried to fight him off. It didn't work out so well for him, but he tried. He showed some guts there. And you can see what they're doing with him now. Ethan Carter III is actually feuding with Jeff Hardy and Kurt Angle at the same time. And TNA are still trying to keep him protected and keep him looking strong, to the point that Kurt Angle is now talking about this guy like he's a big star, and like his feud with EC3 really means a lot to him. It's very nice and refreshing to see TNA so solidly behind this character. This is one of those rare occasions in this company when everything seems to be clicking just right with a particular talent, and they see it, and they're behind it. And I'm just so happy to see that. I think they've really hit a home run with the EC3 character. I think he could do some great things for this company in the future. They haven't dropped the ball with him yet, so by all means, TNA, run with that ball for as long as you can. For crying out loud, TNA had 3 damn gimmick matches on iMPACT this week. 3! And I really don't know why. At least with the Monsters Ball it sort of makes sense to do, but why in the blue hell are you putting Madison Rayne and Velvet Sky in a street fight? That's a match you use to end a feud. It's not a match you throw into the middle of a feud for no damn reason when you're building up to a normal match between the champion and somebody else.
You people are fools!
And if you had to do this with the knockouts, why do it with these 2 in particular? Velvet is the last knockout on the roster who should be in a hardcore street fight, and Madison doesn't really belong in there either. So, surprise, surprise, the match was lame and not very good. Neither of these women are hard-hitting enough for a street fight to make any sense, so the whole thing just came off looking really silly. And not for lack of trying exactly, but they were just really out of their element in this type of environment, and it showed. And on top of that, the match was so short that it really made you wonder why they bothered with a street fight stipulation in the first place. All this accomplished was making me wish the feud with Madison and the Beautiful People would end already. Where the hell is Brittany, for God's sake?
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
Bobby Roode versus Gunner in a tables match was at least a good match. They were able to hype 2 feuds here with James Storm and Bully Ray getting involved, as well as teasing the Beer Money reunion, which hopefully happens sooner than later. But why am I going to pay money to see Rude and Bully in a tables match on pay-per-view when I just saw a tables match for free on Impact? Come on, TNA. How is it possible that after all this time you have still not learned this lesson? Smarten up and use your heads, damn it.
Your posterior better contact someone at once.
I would bet money that a good chunk of the audience watching this show didn't even know there was going to be a Monsters Ball here until the main event started. And a lot of the ones who did know probably didn't care that much because TNA did nothing to make us care. They set the match up very quietly backstage for seemingly no other reason than why the fuck not. And then it's almost like they forgot about it up until around 10:45. They didn't promote it, they didn't hype it up or anything. And you know what, TNA? If viewership drops for the final segment when the quarter hours come out, that's probably one of the reasons why. So don't be surprised. I mean, why should we think the match is a big deal when you do nothing to treat it like one?
You have no idea what the right decision would be.
But even if they had, I don't know if it would have made much of a difference. After they already had a street fight and a tables match in the same show, the thought of doing a Monsters Ball on top of all that just made me tired. None of these gimmick matches stand out or feel special when you book so damn many of them like this. All you're doing is diluting the whole concept so people won't care about them in the future.
And that's the fishing line, 'cause Shark Boy said so.
And that's kind of a shame, too, because this was actually a really good match, and it should have had more fanfare than TNA gave it. Abyss got drop-kicked on barbed wire, Eric took a thumbtack chokeslam. I mean, they doled out some real punishment here. I felt bad for Eric and Abyss. They deserved better than to deliver that kind of effort in a match that was thrown out there in a pretty half-assed way just because. The wrestlers delivered here, but creative let them down. Boy, does that song sound familiar. So not only did Eric ask for this match, but it was a really good match and he went over clean. So after 1 week, the writers have already done more to make Eric Young look like a credible world champion than they did with Magnus during his entire title reign. How ironic is that? It doesn't excuse the shoddy build-up to Eric winning the title, but so far they're making him look good now that he has it at least. Hit and miss Impact this week. There was more good than bad when it came to the wrestling, but I was not enamored with creative, and they're falling back on some really bad habits with all these damn gimmick matches. Cool it with the gimmicks, TNA. And if it's not too much trouble, maybe try to talk about the Sacrifice pay-per-view a little bit next week. Seriously.